1 minute. Making dinner. Oh, no, I can't.
I'm making you dinner. You didn't hear?
I just am going to get myself a pen and.
Do you want to get anything to drink or anything?
I've got. Okay, I think we can get started.
He's going to be heckling from the front row. Luckily, it's only a minute up here, so.
The heckler could be heckler.
Yes. Hey, bring it on. Already? All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to tonight's event. We're really happy to have everybody here because these are always really special events. We have an amazing guest tonight. So welcome to Leadership Insights, a view from the helm. If this is your first event that you've attended, we've been doing these at Northwood for many years now, and we've had an incredible lineup of guests that Dr. Stahauer has interviewed over the years. And this year, tonight, we're really honored and fortunate to have Mr. Bill Long, who's the president and CEO of MEMA, which is the Vehicle Supplier Association. And not only are we lucky to have Bill here, but Bill's been a supporter of Northwood for many years, and so is MEMA. John and the team were here during the auto show, so we're really fortunate to have such amazing supporters for the Northwood community. So thank you, and I'm going to hand it over to James Odell, who's our Director of Corporate Education for the University of the Aftermarket.
It's great to be with you all, and I'm excited to introduce all of the students afterwards to a friend of mine, Bill Long. At Northwood, our mission is to develop free enterprise leaders who drive social and economic progress. And we do that with a very specific philosophy of immersive learning, experiential learning. This is one of those great events where we get to have an experiential learning opportunity, where we can bring the coursework that we do every day in all of our classes, we bring that to life. All of our classes, or all of our students, I should say, go through some foundational classes. Every student that comes through here goes through classes that talk about leadership. They talk about entrepreneurship. We discuss free markets and the importance of free markets. Bill demonstrates all of those things throughout his career. He can bring those to life from his experience. He embodies the core ethics that we teach all of our students, things like personal responsibility, earned success, empathy, respect. Those are core philosophies that we can see and Bill can bring to life. His career arc goes through so many different parts of the industry, from the motor vehicle aftermarket to the OE and the supplier base, to commercial vehicle. And let's not forget motorsports, where his true passion and heart lies. He is well suited because of the success he's had in his career. He's led manufacturing companies. He's led sales teams. He's had category management groups report up to him. So many different business disciplines have reported up through him. He has had to lead and create strategy. global enterprises. He can speak to so many different parts of our curriculum and so many different classes. And it's great to have him bring those things to life with his career and his stories. But what I want to do is tell you a story about Bill. How about that? I met Bill probably 12 years ago when I was a participant in the University of the Aftermarket Leadership 2.0 course here on campus. And Bill was a presenter to that class and has faithfully supported and contributed to that class over the time. And he was so gracious, me as a newer employee professional to the business, to spend time with me and have a conversation. And every time I would reach out to Bill, he was always very gracious to answer. And when I asked him, hey, Bill, would you be willing to be a reference for me when I applied to come to Northwood as an employee, he was gracious enough to do that. And so it was instrumental to have folks like Bill be willing to support me. It's the power of networks and the power of relationship that drives so much of our industry. And I'm grateful for Bill to have that relationship. And so now to introduce him through this venue to our university family. So I'm excited, but I would like to introduce our moderator. It's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Stehauer, who's Northwood University's academic vice president and provost. She has earned her doctorate in political science and international relationships at Northwestern University and has completed postdoctorate study at Harvard. Her scholarly work has focused on East-West relationships during the Cold War, American foreign policy, and the unification of Germany. Her business career has focused on strategy formulation and implementation, and she has worked with large and small organizations, both domestic and global, spanning many sectors. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Kristen Stehauer.
Well, thank you, James, and thanks to all for joining us both here in the Plaster Center and also via live streaming. We are so pleased that you've joined us, and we have a special treat in store for you. Bill Long serves as Professor Odell mentioned, is the president and CEO of MEMA, the Vehicle Suppliers Association, and plays a pivotal role in advancing the interests of manufacturers and suppliers of vehicle components, systems, and technology. With a deep understanding of the industry's complexities and the evolving vehicle mobility landscape, Bill joined MEMA in 2012 as a division president before moving into his current role as president and CEO in February 2019. With over 4 decades of experience in the automotive and commercial vehicle supplier industry, Bill has held executive roles at a variety of organizations, including Dana Inc. and ProLiance International. His dynamic experience spans all market segments, including original equipment and aftermarket. Bill's leadership has positioned MEMA as a leading voice in shaping policies, promoting innovation, and advocating for the industry's contributions to vehicle safety, sustainability, and economic growth. Under Bill's visionary leadership, MEMA has undergone a strategic realignment to better position the organization for the future. His transformational guidance is deeply admired and reflects his unwavering commitment to the vehicle supplier industry. Recognized for his profound industry knowledge and dedication, Bill is a driving force in the vehicle supplier industry, emphasizing collaboration, growth, and innovation. He has also made significant contributions to various boards and received numerous accolades recognizing his influence and expertise. He's a well-known figure in motorsports, having served as a corporate officer for NASCAR in Daytona Beach, as well as top executive for the IndyCar Series and the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. I'm sure many of you are going to have some questions about all of that. His distinguished awards include the Outstanding Business Leader Award from Northwood University and the MEMA Triangle Award, which was awarded to him during his time at Dana. Bill has also received the Automotive Aftermarket Management Education Award. Additionally, his commitment to motorsports was recognized with the Hack Arut Senior Excellence in Motorsports Award. And we could go on, but we know you'd like to hear from him directly. So please join me in formally welcoming Mr. Bill Long.
Wow.
Well, we're so pleased to have you here, Bill. Thanks for making the time in your schedule and investing in our students learning from your wisdom.
Well, I'll just say thank you to all the students for coming to listen to this. I think my kids wrote that bio. And James, after listening to you, it's almost clear that I can't keep a job. But thank you for the kind comments. So it's a pleasure to be here.
Well, we're so pleased to have you. And I think it'd be great if we even started out with what MEMA is, because I know many of our students are aware of opportunities in corporations, but you are at a meta level, if you will. You're at an umbrella level for the industry and influencing policy and all sorts of other things in your role.
It's a great question. So how many people know what a trade association is? So SEMA is a trade association. The Auto Care is a trade association. So MEMA is a trade association. We represent suppliers, not OEMs, but suppliers to the automotive industry, those companies that manufacture systems and components. And MEMA is celebrating its 121st anniversary this year. So in 1904, 16, I think the press release said a half 100 suppliers got together at the Holland Inn Hotel in Cleveland, Ohio, with a shared vision that they were stronger together. And today, MEMA represents the largest sector of manufacturing jobs in the United States, and that group represents some 2.6% of US GDP. But when people ask me, so what's it like working for a trade association? And I'll share a short story. I was working for a supplier manufacturer, and the person that had this job approached me one day and said, have you ever thought about, working for a trade association? And I said, as a matter of fact, I have. No way am I going to work for a trade association. What do you people do all day? I said, I see you running from one end of Apex to the other. I mean, is the coffee cold in the member center? What could be so important? And now I know. MEMA is like working for a think tank. We get to sit at the epicenter with a mission to advance the business interests of the supplier community. And we literally start with a clean white piece of paper that identifies what are the mega trends in the industry, strategic shifts, headwinds, pain points. And then it's our job to figure out how we advance members' business interests in the industry in the wake of that list. And we get to surround ourselves with resident smart people that help us work on those. And it's not that manufacturers, suppliers can't do this on their own, but they have businesses to run. So our job really allows us to peel back the onion, do a deep dive on these issues, have a 360-degree view of the industry, and really create platforms for dialogue and industry change that bring greater clarity around what we call the broad range of possibilities. So we hold 241 events a year. Think about that. Cheryl Dry and John Chalifo. John, maybe you've seen around campus in the past, but John is led our remanufacturing group as president of that division and helped us launch the Center for Sustainability. Cheryl Dry heads all the operational side for our aftermarket group. And together, they, along with MEMA's got maybe 55 employees, so it's relatively small. But we hold, again, a number of platforms that are designed to bring thought leadership and clarity around those issues. Other than that, it's a kind of a slow day.
There's a lot there. So you're helping the industry identify and address challenges. What do you see as the major challenges for the industry, or basically the industries you serve, because it's such a broad portfolio?
Yeah, you don't have to look very far. The headlines every day pretty much tell the story. And I think everybody in the room is kind of feeling the impact of some of the challenges, particularly with tariffs and things. But I would say the challenges are really around the unprecedented level of uncertainty in our industry. The speed of innovation, new technology, the race to electrification that we all ran to, and now the uncertainty of what electrification, the future of electrification looks like. I use the term whether the dogs like the dog food. Will motorists really want EVs, and are they affordable? That challenge. The sunken working capital that has gone into electrification, the impact of tariffs that are creating a very fragile supplier base, let alone OE base. And then I think on a broader global scope, the challenge of the industry to be competitive globally in the wake of China and BYD and all the things that are happening there. So it's a target-rich environment, if you will, for trade associations.
How do you navigate taking sides?
It's a great question. There's a fair amount of diplomacy that goes on in this job, but I think we have put, with the support of the board of directors of MEMA, that we will fight for the must-wins, if you will, regulatory or legislative, even though there might be conflicting issues. So we have suppliers that are net exporters, and we have suppliers that are net importers. When we were fighting for USMCA, we had people on both sides.
Could you share what the USMCA is too? Because not everybody may know what that is.
Yeah, the U.S.-Mexico trade agreement. So it replaced the North American Free Trade Agreement. It basically allows free trade between Mexico and Canada and the United States, which has really been a key enabler that has allowed the U.S. to have global competitiveness. The region has helped us really be competitive with China and other parts of the world. But and we have new technology companies and old technology companies, legacy companies. So when we're trying to promote policy, some are not in favor of electric vehicles because they manufacture internal combustion engine components and vice versa. So we try to get consensus and collaboration and move the industry forward, and compromise, obviously, just in any dialogue. Yeah.
There's quite a lesson in that, mentioning that you fight for the must-wins there. I think that's something that will resonate with our students. So fast forward, what do you foresee for the future of your industry? What will it look like, let's say, 20, 30 years from now?
My current reaction is that the future of the automotive industry in the U.S. is uncertain. Not to cast a dark cloud over the industry, but when you look at global competition today, the policies that the industry is being hit with, the long list of tariffs, we could spend all afternoon talking about what that means. Over the next 3 years, I think the Center for Automotive Research has calculated the industry is going to absorb 188 billion in additional costs to the automotive industry over the next 3 years. The price of a new vehicle is kind of out of reach for most already today. And when you look at vehicles made in other parts of the world, it's hard for the US to be competitive. So that's one. But in the past 3 weeks, I've sat with Mary Barra, CEO of General Motors, Mark Royce, the president of GM, Roger Penske, Steve Crowley, the head of Cox Automotive, and to hear their optimism about the future is just reassuring. Despite the headwinds, they are so bullish about the future of the car dealership business. The OEMs are bullish about the future, both in continuing new technology with EVs and autonomy and what have you, and the aftermarket. So if you look at the projections for new vehicle production through 2035, we might not be back to pre-COVID levels of 17 million new vehicles, but we're 2 to 3% growth every year. The aftermarket has been experienced about 8% growth over the past 4 years, and now is projected again to continue to grow. Vehicle miles driven are up, the average age of the vehicle, those foundational pillars are all very strong. So the industry has proved over the 120 years that MEMA has been around to be pretty innovative and pretty resilient. So I think for the people in the room and for leaders, I think one of the things we need to learn how to do, a lot of companies go through strategic planning, but we're not very good at it. The corporate headquarters sends over the documents, you fill out the forms on the growth and things, but we don't spend time to talk about and plan for the broad range of possibilities. I said to a group of automotive aftermarket manufacturers, they said, so give us an example of how we would do that. And I said, so what would your business look like if all 16 million new vehicles produced next year were all EVs? What would your business look like? What would your business look like if we were at war with China over Taiwan? What would your business look like? And the risk of that, I've been told, is not zero, which means it's might not be a certain inevitability, but it's a possibility. So how do we begin to think about creating a resilient business? And then I can tell you unequivocally, the industry needs you in this room. We need the diversity of thought. We need your problem-solving skills. I'll talk about mix in a moment. But we need that new problem-solving perspective that you bring. I think it's vital to the industry's future. So MEMA has a group that we created, which was inspired by a board member. So instead of having old guys like me create a young leaders group to mentor young people like you, we reversed it. And we said, the people that really need mentoring is guys like me. So we created MIX, their term, because they didn't like the word millennial. So it's modern industrial experts. And the board of directors of MEMA create challenges that they're trying to address. And we present those to our MIX council of young people. And this reverse mentoring, it's their job to come back and say, if I were you, I'd do this. And what you're doing now, I'd stop. So the feedback has been incredible. And I've suggested to Northwood of creating a reverse mentoring mix group to help the industry. And we'd be glad to share the long list of problems that we have. No pun intended with the long part, but
I'm sure there are many students in the room who jump at that opportunity.
and we would love that. So we should follow up on how we might bring that to life.
So that's a great segue into our next question. And by the way, these questions came from our students. So this reflects what they're interested in learning. What advice do you have for someone starting their career generally, and then also in your industry?
Hold out for the signing bonus. No. Maybe three things, and thanks for that question. One, don't be afraid to speak up. So if you're entering into a new position, I don't care what it is, don't be afraid to share your perspective, because any company that you have joined and you're part of, they want your voice. They want to hear your voice, and that will help you be heard. Two, take your boss to lunch. I don't care if it's your boss, and don't be bashful. Don't stop with the person that hired you. Call the president, call the CEO. I can tell you, I reward and admire any new hire that we have that says, hey, can I take you to lunch? Just to have that sharing of insight. I would continue to do that throughout your career, but that's a good way to start. I also advocate, I have kind of two philosophies, and one, get to know the business model and the value proposition of whatever company you join. Understand the math, how it works. If it's a car dealer, if it's an auto parts store, by the way, I started my career at a Napa auto parts store as a delivery truck driver. This is, between in this room and those on the screen, but I had that job until I crashed the boss's delivery truck. And then I was immediately promoted to the counter. So if you want to get promoted from the delivery truck to the counter, just crash the boss's truck. But take the time to learn what the business model is and the value proposition. And then maybe career-wise, two things that I would suggest, and the people that work at MEMA, I'm a broken record on this. But I think in this works maybe in a lot of things that you do. But I practice seek first to understand before being understood. Cheryl's smiling. She's going, oh no, here we go again. And two is to begin with the end in mind. So if you develop those habits, I think when you have that lunch with your boss or his boss, seek to understand what keeps them awake at night. And by knowing those things, I've found in my career, it's caused me to think differently, because I've got a greater understanding of the things that are really driving the business from a higher level, which then makes me understand, the company and the people that I'm working for. So just a couple points. That's
wonderful advice. What change would you like to see happen in your industry?
Three things quickly. The elimination of distracted driving. 36,000 deaths in 2024. Kind of passionate about that. So we continue to build technology that will help survive a crash, but that's not working so well. Even though the number of fatalities has declined 3.8% from the prior year, it's a staggering number. So I'd like to see how we figure that out. I'd like to see greater diversity in the industry. We're starting to see a lot of movement, creating opportunity for diversity of thought in the industry, and instead of an entire industry of old guys sitting around looking like me that are involved in the business. Those would be a couple of the things that are kind of on my radar.
And what do you see as the most exciting opportunities in your industry right now?
We talk about this a lot. We have an office in Washington, D.C., and we fight all the issues every day in the headwinds, but it's really the opportunities that drive us. So if you think about the industry 20 years ago, we were metal bashers. And today, the industry is a high-tech industry. All the technology and innovation of any industry you could find is in this sector. So the software-defined vehicle, automotive or ADAS, automated driver assist systems, data, and how you use it, and how it can change the industry, particularly on the aftermarket side, just right part, right place, right time, prognostics, failure rates, supply chain efficiencies, those kinds of things. And it's been said that without change, there is no profit. So we've all seen products that have been around for a number of years and they become commodities because there's no new technology. The industry is going through a lot of change, so there's a lot of opportunity and profit to be had. And I think in this job, and almost in any career, in any job, we're all problem solvers. Here's the problem. So I think there's the automotive industry. There is a lot of opportunity for growth and innovation, and how do we improve mobility? How do we improve, fatalities? How do we deal with the environment? All those issues. So.
Without change, there is no profit.
Without change.
That's a big takeaway.
Without change, there is no profit. That's right.
There's opportunity.
Just look at all the legacy automobiles and why car companies create new ones. They're not making money on the old models. OEMs or tier one suppliers are creating new technology, and all the car companies are trying to attract the suppliers to be the first ones to be granted that technology, whether it's from Bosch or Schaeffler or ZF, any of the big companies. So it's almost which OEM can treat the suppliers the best, so that the suppliers will take the new innovation and give it to an OEM so they can be the first to generate the greatest amount of profit.
Such an interesting angle on competition.
Yeah.
So what advice would you give those in the room on leadership lessons you've learned?
I already touched on a few of them. In addition to the kind of habits that I mentioned, for me, I've always tried to create an environment that allows people to be successful. A lot of organizations might be following that trend. I'll be so bold as to say, but typically you bring a lot of experience, but you're hired for a job to do this. And in many ways, companies kind of encourage you to stay in your lane. But I think from a leadership perspective, I like to play to the strengths of the individual. And when you get in these leadership roles, I would encourage you to do the same. In a football analogy, if you've got a great quarterback, you kind of build the offense around a great quarterback. But if he can run the ball, you don't tell him no. He's got the talent. So, just identifying, recognizing the the potential and what people bring to the discussion helps drive diversity of thought. And so that's kind of a leadership style for me. The other one is, and I'll be bold enough to share my cheesecake theory of leadership. So imagine you've got a piece of cheesecake in your hand. Put your hand up. Cheesecake, there it is. You can kind of move it around. You've kind of got control of the cheesecake, right? Now, slowly make a fist. And what happens? The cheesecake kind of oozes through your fingers. You kind of lose control of the cheesecake. Moral of the story, if you want greater control, loosen your grip. Cheesecake theory of management.
I think that one's going to stick. So I know there are a lot of motorsports enthusiasts in the room. I saw some nodding when that came up in your bio. What lessons have you taken from your time in the professional motorsports that you could share with our students?
How many people are race fans? Any NASCAR fans in the room? F1? IndyCar? So what I learned in professional motorsports is the best racing on the planet, defined by the greatest, the fastest cars, the most lead changes, the closest finishes. That would be the definition of great racing. Isn't enough to have a sustainable business, to fill the grandstands and drive TV ratings. Because there are a lot of, great finishes, close lead changes. Everybody claims, fast cars with these palaces that are now no longer full, and they're taking grandstand seats out. So if you were in charge of NASCAR, it wasn't that long ago, maybe a decade ago, when there were more sponsors than there were cars. And today, we've all seen, they're eliminating the number of seats. So when TV spans the arena, it doesn't look empty. And you can't find one single car in NASCAR today that has a single sponsor that's sponsoring the car all year. And then you've got the Indianapolis 500, you've got Formula One. And, right now Formula One is on a roll. But 10 years ago, we would say that NASCAR would never lose its momentum. So I would challenge whether one of the things that I've learned is in motorsports is the need for creating relevance. So when I went to IndyCar, I was hired to reestablish open wheel racing in North America. And the first week I was there, I said, IndyCar only has two problems. One, people don't know about IndyCar and open wheel racing. And two, people don't care. So all we have to do is solve those two problems.
That's kind of big.
The first one was easy. It's on this channel, it's on, this location and these dates, but making people care and creating relevance is, I think, what I learned more from professional motorsports, and that thinking you could apply to any auto parts group, any business, any event marketing that we do.
Could you give us some examples of how you have made people care?
Sure. So most motorsports properties promote the event. So we've got 16 events, and that's what they market. So they have 16 products. At IndyCar, it was the 16 races plus the 30 individual drivers that were all products. So I wrote the brand architectures for Danica Patrick, Dario Franchitti, Elio Castroneves, Tony Kanaan, so that we identified what their brand was, what demographic they could own, and then we marketed specifically to those regions. So we got Elio Castroneves on Dancing with the Stars, which he won that year. And Tony Kanaan and Dario are both Latin American. So we targeted that market, and then sponsors that were interested in owning that market, we helped connect. And then we launched like the NFL fan experience. You know, you go to the Super Bowl, they have this punt, pass, and kick thing. We launched the IndyCar fan experience, where we were doing downtown street parties with the Indy Live stage. So we held a concert downtown Chicago before the race. We had the kids tent. We had the pit stop challenge with Indy cars loaded up with Codemaster video games, and they'd compete for qualifying at the Indianapolis 500 on Codemaster, and just created that viral kind of network. But it's dynamic, I would say. Just and we do a lot of that now just at MEMA. How do you get members engaged in sustainability? A lot of them know about the Center for Sustainability that we launched, but how do we get them to care? Or even on any of the issues.
What's been the key to making members care about sustainability?
How do we do that?
Yes.
I'll let John answer that. You can ask him at the break.
Okay, well, we can do that.
And our answer is that we're not talking about, we frame that not as much about being a good citizen to the environment, but how do you create strategic advantage through sustainability? And we help suppliers, no matter where they are in their journey, to move to the next step. That's what the center does.
Thank you.
Did I get that right, John?
So over the course of your career, what has been your biggest challenge?
Can I pick 4?
Go for it. That's a bonus. That's in the bonus territory.
I work for a company called Eklund, the Napa Eklund brand, if you've ever been to a Napa Auto Parts store. Along the way, we launched, we took 27 different distribution points and created 3 million square foot warehouses around the country. Move all our distribution into 3 locations. And the software didn't work. So we were maybe had $70 or $80 million worth of business with Genuine Parts Company in Napa, and we couldn't ship. We went for months with a 40% line fill, and my boss that I worked for at the time had a nervous breakdown because of it. So I had to step in and handle the investor questions, hold on to the Napa reputation. We pulled all the salespeople off the street, handed them a fax of a customer order, took all the product in the warehouse and lined it up numerically, and pulled orders manually. And then we didn't know how to invoice. So it'd be like if you went to a restaurant and you ordered breakfast, like, scrambled eggs and ordered pancakes and bacon. We might ship the eggs on Tuesday, and the bacon might come a month later, and the pancakes, who knows? So that was a pretty difficult time. The IndyCar, job was pretty challenging because we went through this period of when you think of IndyCar and open wheel racing, you think of what? And on a good day, people didn't think of anything. And on a bad day, all they thought about was the separation of championship auto racing teams, kart, and the creation of the Indy Racing League. So that trying to create that top of mind awareness and some of the things that we talked about was a challenge. And then maybe the last one with MEMA and a couple of years ago, we recognized that if MEMA continued to stay the way that it was, that the risk of staying the way that we were was greater than the risk of change. So we are realigned and positioned MEMA for the future. Imagine you were the head of Coca-Cola, and you're going to now eliminate all the brand names that people are familiar with. And then you're going to take all the jobs internally and change the job responsibilities of everybody in the organization. So that's what we did 3 years ago at MEMA. We took 4 divisions that were focused on aftermarket, separate for OE, separate for commercial vehicle and remanufacturing, and changed those brand names and created 2 new divisions, and then realigned the responsibilities of the people in the organization. And MEMA at the time had 5 different boards that we all had to get agreement and bring along. If you want to talk about diplomacy, but we had strong support, and they gave us 18. We proposed to get that transition done in 18 months, and the chairman said, "You've got 8 months." So we're now in our junior year for that transition, and we're quite proud of the results.
Congratulations on
Yeah,
that.
those are 3.
Thank you for those. Shifting topics a little bit.
Sure.
I imagine that you don't have a lot of free time, but when you do, what do you like to do to relax?
Maybe, well, full disclosure. So in the motorsports world, I still moonlight as a NASCAR official, as a chief starter and flagman on the weekends. So on a Friday or Saturday or Sunday night, you can find me on a flag stand at a racetrack, throughout New England, primarily with the NASCAR Modified Series. So that would be one, is if I don't get enough of this during the week.
You truly love it.
So my dad was a NASCAR official the day that NASCAR was founded in 1948 until 1975. So I started going to racetracks since I was 4. So I guess I can't shake it. I've been known to play a little piano, so I do that to relax a little bit, and then I actually do a little stained glass projects. So between those 3, it takes my mind off of USMCA and Washington, D.C. By the way, MEMA has 3 offices, one in Washington, 2 blocks from the White House, one in Southfield, Michigan, and then one in Raleigh, North Carolina. And usually when people ask me where I'm from, I tell them the ticket counter at Delta Airlines, because I'm generally on about 120, 150 flights a year, give or take 1 or 2.
So another question our students have is, what is the best compliment you've ever received?
Usually from my 2 girls. Recently, I'm not sure if this is a compliment or not, but I'm going to take it as this. So Roger Penske was at the Automotive News 100th celebration, receiving an award for his contribution over the past 100 years. And I'm sure you've heard the name Roger Penske. And I went up to him, haven't seen him in, one-on-one like this for a number of years. So I reminded him of where he knew me. So I said, you may remember me. I was the vice president of marketing, chief marketing officer for IndyCar. And his response said, I remember you and we need you back. This was just a month ago. So getting, that response from a guy like Roger Penske, after all that time, I mean, it's 20 years since I worked for IndyCar. But I took that as a big compliment.
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, that was fun.
Another
I
question.
might take him up on that.
Yeah. Another question from our students is, what do you want to be remembered for?
A lot of people think about their legacy. I've never been one to think about whether I wanted to be remembered or what I might want to leave behind. But I think I'd like to be remembered for, again, creating an environment that allowed people to be successful, and kind of the number of people that I've worked with that I have helped their careers. I can name, a couple dozen people that are in senior leadership positions today that I help shape and move their careers along. So that mentorship and then, I've always prided myself as always trying to be a professional, do it right, even when doing it right was not always the popular decision, but it was the right decision. And then this will be contrary to my answer, but humility. I don't necessarily try to be the out front leader, but I don't particularly see a hierarchy of leadership within any of the groups that I've worked with. So it's always been a partnership.
That's a wonderful note on which to go to the Q&A, because we know our students, both and the viewers online, have questions. So there's a live microphone in the room, and there's also a QR code to scan and submit questions online if you have them.
And John and Cheryl are not allowed to fact check. Look at that. I got all the answers right. Well, if you're not involved in the automotive sector, I would encourage you to get involved. And I would also encourage you to think about trade associations. It's a great career, and the things that you get to touch in this industry. And we have a few Northwood graduates that are on our team today, and we're looking to get a few more. So, John, do you have the microphone?
I do, Bill.
I was afraid
we
of
all
that.
we all just got to know how fast. What's the fastest you've driven a vehicle, and at what track? What car was it?
So the fastest I've driven a vehicle wasn't on a track. So in full transparency, I guess two things. So I'm a member of the 200-mile-an-hour club in an Indy car, but I wasn't driving. So IndyCar has a program where they've created a two-seater Indy car, so it's fighter pilot. And I was part of the creation of that when I was at IndyCar during my time there. So the 200-mile-an-hour club is you sit in the back seat with Mario Andretti as the driver, and they run you around the Indianapolis 500 or the Indianapolis Motor Speedway in excess of 200 miles an hour. And coming off of turn 4 down the front stretch, you can literally almost reach out and touch the wall because Mario will, and you can feel the vacuum. There's this big red button that if it's a little too intense for you, you can, push the button and Mario may or may not slow down because the button is only a light for him. And then I drove a Indy car in Las Vegas at Las Vegas Motor Speedway and was fast enough to qualify for the kart race that particular year. So that's, but I owned a 1966 427 Cobra that
Do you wish you still had it?
Yeah, well, 470 horsepower. The thing weighs about as much as a cup of coffee. And I bought it with 4,600 restored miles on it. And I think I had it for maybe put 1,000 miles on it. And I took it to a Cobra restorer in New York, in Long Island, to have the motor redone. And he said, "What do you want?" And I said, "Well," because he said, if you start giving me a lot of specifications, torque curves, horsepower, it's going to be really expensive. I said, "I only want 2 things." I said, "I want sprint car-like throttle response, and 2, I never ever want anybody going by me on the highway." So that was the fastest I've ever been on the road, and I won't admit the speed, but
How's it going? My name's Adam Millay. I'm a
Hey, Adam.
sophomore here, automotive aftermarket major. I
nice.
guess my first question is, I guess you might have just answered it, but if you had like to keep one car, had a dream car, what would it be? And then my second question is, if you had like a recommendation or like could give like a pathway for like somebody who wants to get into like the motorsport, like area of like the business,
Yeah.
like how I go about doing that.
Yeah, no, good questions. So I ask that question a lot about if you could own any vehicle that was ever made at any time, what would it be? And my answer is always the same. It's a 1958 short wheelbase California Spider Ferrari. Spoke wheels, kind of subtle, kind of got that, TR6 look to it. I think the last one that sold at auction was like 26 million. So if you want to chip in, maybe some endowment, but that would be mine. That's probably next to the VW microbus, but it's a toss-up. Getting into motorsports, the path is, my recommendation would be through the team side. And, there's a number of ways to get started. A guy that used to announce at the racetrack that I grew up in Agawam, Massachusetts, is Mike Joy. And Mike Joy is the lead announcer for NASCAR. As one example, he was the announcer then when he was, just a teenager. IMSA is, if you're familiar, is growing. They've got a lot of new engine manufacturers. Reaching out to teams, just making that connection. The stories of people that, just made that contact. Hey, can I come and, I'll clean the cars, whatever it is. Ray Evernham, Jeff Gordon's crew chief for many, many years, started that way. And he ended up becoming the most winningest crew chief. And so there are a lot of stories that, so if it were me, I'd probably take every NASCAR, IndyCar, and IMSA team go down through the list of who they are, and I'd drop a personal note. Hey, can I take you to lunch? It's interesting how those doors open.
We have an interesting question from online. With the automobile manufacturers making profits on model changes, why don't we see a shift to the Tesla architecture model that rely on less parts and chips?
So make sure I understand the question. Why don't OEMs move to an architecture that's more like Tesla, that uses less parts?
I think so. So the fewer parts and probably simpler architecture for easier model changes is what I'm reading into this.
Yeah. So there are two answers to why that, hello online, that two answers on why that OEMs aren't racing toward electrification. One is the age-old issue of consumers drive demand. So are we at a point yet where consumers have confidence in getting over the range anxiety, the infrastructure for charging? And if you look at the cost between a hybrid, the cost of ownership for a hybrid vehicle just in gas versus an electric vehicle, it's still a pretty big swing in a lot of states where electricity might be more expensive. So that would be one. Two, there isn't enough volume or demand for an EV to have enough capacity utilization to have a vehicle that they can make money on. So right now, every EV that they make, they're losing money. And the only way that they could make a vehicle affordable, quote unquote, is through government rebates. And the cost of components is not the defining factor for profitability with an OEM. So
Thank you for that.
that's my final answer.
Well, actually, it is your final answer because unfortunately we're out of time, and we're going to be holding a reception afterwards for those who've joined us here on campus. And I know our audience members have even more questions for you. But Bill, thank you for sharing your wisdom.
Thank you so much, and thank you for your
insights,
attention.
and we clearly see why you're such a leader in our industry. So wait, but wait, there's more.
The lightning round.
To wrap things up, we're going to hear from a student who is just outstanding. Logan Wilmot is a student from Oxford, Michigan, and he's majoring in automotive aftermarket management and has a minor in finance. That's a power combination. And he's going to share some key takeaways to wrap things up.
Fantastic.
All righty. Thank you, Dr. Stayhauer, and thank you to Mr. Long for so generously sharing your wisdom. I had a few things that I wanted to touch on. As me and my fellow classmates prepare for our professional careers, I have a few valuable takeaways that I found from today's interview. So one of the big takeaways that I took away was the large opportunity that's in the aftermarket. As you said, 8% growth. There's a lot of optimism as well in the industry. Another big thing that I really liked was that you mentioned that the industry needs young problem solvers, and that there's a lot of different opportunities, whether that be with suppliers or whether that be in trade associations like MEMA. And lastly, I would like to highlight the cheesecake analogy. I thought that was really fantastic, and how greater control really comes from loosening your grip. So, sorry about that. Alrighty. So thank you again for allowing us all to benefit from your leadership insights. And Mr. Long, to commemorate, you are serving as a guest for Northwood University's Leadership Insights, A View from the Helm. We have a gift to show our appreciation.
So thank you for joining us this afternoon. It's been truly inspiring, and that will wrap things up. And those of you who joined us here, please join us for the reception and have an opportunity to interact with this inspiring and outstanding leader. Thank you.